Welcome, everybody. I wanted to record this short session for you. If you're a participant on our diploma or advanced diploma courses, to really support you with your reflective practice whilst you're on the program. Now, if you're currently completing our foundation certificate course, you have more of a structure. You have a self-evaluation form that you'll be completing after each session. But for participants on our Diploma Advanced Diploma course, we're conscious that we invite you to record and capture your learning about yourself as a coach, your practice, um, and really to strengthen this now, I want to give you a bit more structure around that. Um, so when we think about our reflective practice, now, whilst you're on the program, I suppose primarily one of the key purposes of keeping a reflective practice is to capture your learning and development as a result of your coaching practice. So there's that quote that we referred to in Module 1 from John Dewey, which is, I don't learn from having an experience, I learn from reflecting on it. And we're taking time after a coaching session to really reflect um, both on the session itself, but also your development as a coach is really important. Now, you'll be using these reflections to write the assignment at the end of the program. So, really, the more you capture here, the easier it's going to be for you to write that assignment. So, one of the real purposes of the reflective practice, of course, is your learning portfolio submission. And at the same time, we're preparing you for post the program when you're practicing as a professional coach, because this is really where we develop our own emotional intelligence, our internal supervisor. The ability to reflect is critical for our ongoing development. Um, so I would say an outcome of your reflective practice will be your congruence as a coach, that sense of real clarity of who you are, and how you're developing on an ongoing basis, who you're becoming. But also that confidence will come through as well. So a really important part of this program. So you're going to have to plan this time, and I'd really encourage you to see this as part of the session. So on the program, we talk a lot about preparing ourselves for the coaching conversation, the coaching session, but this warm down time where we're reflecting to really, I suppose, decompress and step out of the coaching session to go into the next part of our day is a critical part of this as well. Now, of course, as part of that will be everything that we're capturing about the client to help us prepare for the next session. So, with that in mind, if you're planning on doing an hour session, I would say really plan that time either side. So, see that as part of the session. So, you may book out an hour and a half in your diary, so you've got the time before to get present, to review what you've written previously about the client, uh, obviously the session itself, and then time for your reflective practice afterwards, because it will really support you to let go of anything you may be holding as well. So really plan that time in. Now, really, to support you with your practice, I want to share with you 10 questions that you can utilize after a coaching session, and capture your reflections. Now, of course, there's flexibility in that because some of the questions might feel more important to you after a session than others. Um, and you will be able to find these on your cohort space on the Learning Hub. So there's a PDF of these questions as well, which you can refer to. I'd also encourage you to look at the core principles, which you'll find in the coaching practice section in your resource guide, because you may want to reflect on how you're developing against the core principles in terms of you as a coach and your capability. Of course, the other model that you can refer to, of course, is our transformational coach framework as well. So, after a coaching session, here are the questions that you can utilize to really structure your post reflections after a coaching session. So let's just look at each one. So of course, we're going to spend some time capturing what happened during the session. So what did the client bring? What were their insights? What were the actions that they identified? Um, there, of course, could be other elements to this as well. You could be reflecting on what you believe wasn't said by them, or perhaps a theme that's emerging for them. Um, you might be reflecting on perhaps unfinished business in terms of something that they raised towards the end of the session that they may want to revisit at the next session. So I would say just take some time initially to just download the reflections. What was discussed, what happened, and then the so what bit, what actions did they agree? What will they be doing between now and when you next see them? Okay, and then from here, we're going to sort of deepen our reflections around the client. So thinking about what was discussed, what was covered, what were my observations of the client? So these may be things that you noticed about them, perhaps patterns around what they're saying. That could be expressed through their verbal language, of course, their body language, non-verbal language. It might be patterns of behavior that you're starting to notice. It could be mental traps, so things that we spoke about on module 3 of the diploma course. But for example, um, I'm working with a client, and recently I was just noticing how often she will diminish herself in the conversation. So she'll often say, "Well, if I can do it." So there's a mental trap that she's falling in on, and it's something I was reflecting on after the session. There may be observations around their energy, where they lit up, or perhaps when their energy dropped, perhaps the long sighs, etc., giving you a sense of something that they weren't expressing. But a real chance to spend some time now after the session, just getting below the surface in terms of what you're observing about the coachee. And then bringing the focus to you as the coach. So then what were you experiencing? You might want to reflect on your presence. How present were you during a session? What did you notice about your inner dialogue? Any interferences that were playing out for you? What were you noticing about your energy? And of course, this could be after the session as well as during. Again, really, really important as you're developing as a coach. We're really holding that mirror up and making sense of our inner world as we're working with this coachee. Because again, over a number of sessions, we might notice themes happening for us as well. And then thinking about between us. So we've looked at the client, we've looked at ourselves, and now between us, really thinking about the relational container that we're establishing with the coachee. What are our observations about the coaching relationship? What's the sense of trust that's there in terms of psychological safety? I mean, how vulnerable is the coachee bringing? What are you noticing about your ability to connect and attune to the coachee? They're really listening with all of our senses, um, listening to what's being said and not said. The felt sense of the coachee. Again, there may be reflections that come from this that means that there are things that we want to raise with the coachee next time. And so after these initial 4 reflections, we're now going to sort of step onto the balcony and think about the so what. So the first reflective question here is, well, what might this be telling me about myself as a coach? Maybe noticing that perhaps um, we're still noticing that we're wanting to lead the coachee, or we're questioning whether we're adding value. Maybe it's something more around we're noticing that we're not using many approaches in the conversation or creative methods. Um, All of these reflections are really, really important in terms of developing our congruence as a coach and getting underneath the surface of what's really happening for us. So continuing on the balcony, the next question is, so what are the strengths I'm recognizing in myself as a coach? Really, really important that we're spending that time to really acknowledge those capacities that we're holding well as a coach each time we have a coaching session. And then we're going to sort of think about the so what bit. So when now I reflect on the session, what's the learning that I'm taking from this session? I mean, that learning could be about the coachee and some things that were playing out that you learned from. Perhaps it was around the challenge that you brought as a coach, or maybe there's something that came from question 3 or 5 about yourself that you're really taking some learning away from that. And then more importantly, so how are you going to apply that to your coaching practice? Really, really important. This is a critical reflection now, not just the what happened, but so what and what now? And then thinking about our next session with the client, well, what might I do more of next time? Perhaps we're noticing something about the reflections from question 4. We want to spend a bit more time really establishing that strong session contract and then reviewing the relationship with them so far so we can try and create more psychological safety. It could be that you want to bring more challenge, or perhaps you want to enable the coachee to get a very clear focus for the conversation. Maybe you want to get beneath the surface and explore the emotions and the beliefs and the values that are there. And then also, there might be things that come out from our reflections that we want to raise with the client next time. Perhaps there was something that happened in the last session that you've been reflecting on, and you want to raise it with them to check out the assumptions you're making. Or maybe there's something about the process that you would like to raise with them next time. So an example could be perhaps they've been turning up to the first couple of sessions without a real clear focus for the conversation. So you want to invite them to prepare more for the coaching session, so they can get more out of it with you. And then the final question is, from these reflections, there may be things that you want to take to supervision. So again, you can just really underline those. Then it gives you some really strong material to take into the supervisory space on the program. So 10 questions that you can really utilize to, bring some real depth in terms of your reflective practice. So again, you'll find these on the Learning Hub under your cohort space. And so you have your reflective practice. And the only thing I'd really say to end this short video is my encouragement be once a month is to book some time out in your diary to one, keep your summary sheets up to date. So making sure your coaching hours, your supervision hours, your CPD hours, summary sheets are all up to date. But then, more importantly, you can review your reflective practice for the previous month in terms of the sessions that you've had. And again, take that balcony view. Think about those questions 5, 6, etc., that really enable you to step back and acknowledge who you're becoming as a coach, really acknowledge the strengths that you're holding and areas that you can continue to work on. That's where the magic of reflective practice comes from, when we're able to take this time, to take that balcony view. So please bring any questions about reflective practice to your supervision. You can also raise them with the faculty members or especially myself on the program. And just to point out on our YouTube channel, we also have some additional videos around reflective practice that you may find useful to watch as well. So thanks for reviewing the session, and I look forward to seeing you soon.